Hey everybody, Brad here with BTPA. Today we are going to take a deeper dive into programming the Boss ES-5. Alright, so here we have a paddle board we built for a customer. You may recognize this from the video we did showing how to switch the 4-cable method between 2 amplifiers with 1 foot switch stomp. If you want to check that video out, it's posted on our channel. Right now we're mainly just going to focus on the Boss ES-5 and some deeper programming aspects like assigning switches, universal changes, so it changes for all the patches and things like that. Let's cover how to make a universal change, whereas you're going to change something once and it will remain the same for all of the patches that you create. Now, you might be asking yourself, why would someone want to do this? Well, in this scenario, you see the A and the B here. Well, this switches to amp A, this switches to amp B, and he wants that for all of his patches. So just hitting this will switch to amp A, just hitting this will switch to amp B. So that's one aspect of it. The other is maybe you're using the input buffer on this and you want that to remain on for all of your channels, and you don't want to have to constantly keep programming that on per channel or per patch. So just some different ideas, or maybe you want to program a switch that's always going to remain whatever switch you need it for. Anyways, so we'll start with that. You'll hit edit, you go over to preference. You're going to hit preference. Right now the input buffer's off. You will see bank right here. It says system. So typically it starts by just saying PAT, which stands for patch, meaning each patch it's going to default to whatever you program for that patch. Well, in this case, the bank switch controls amp B. So, switching to amp B. So we want that to say system. And you just exit. Mute, same thing. And then you'll see like number 1. So this is switch number 1. And if you want it to do something other than obviously switch numbers to bring up program 1 or whatever bank you're on in that patch, obviously you would change it to system, and then you can define that later. So right now we have this, the bank, and the mute switch as the system, global to switch to B to switch to A. So we define that here, meaning system, system. Okay, so now that we've shown this to default to the universal, this is going to be the same on every patch. You're not going to have to program it every time. We need to declare what this bank is going to do. So you'll hit exit. You go over to Control/EXP. Hit enter. First one is bank. So like I said, in this particular scenario, we want the bank to control switching to amp B. So we'll hit enter. We've already got this program. So we want B to the way that the relay works is that we want this to go to the function as control 1, because this is the tip signal on the control 1-2 port. So originally it'll show off, or it shows bank, I'm sorry, but anyways, you go over to control 1, and again you can just define what all of these are. You can define whatever you want it to do if you're changing it other than the bank. And we'll provide in our blog, there's a list of everything that these do. It's just a snippet from the Boss ES-5 manual. Anyways, so we go over to control 1. In this sense, it's only going to be on, so the min and the max is on, and it's a toggle flip switch. And you'll see it says sys. So, that is just saying that that's a universal change. This is going to change. This is going to be the case for every patch you make. Mute, same thing. Only in this case, you want the toggle to be off. So the min and the max is both off because this is always going to switch that relay to being off. The toggle. And again, you can define these to whatever you want them to be, but this is just how it's set up for this board, giving you a sense to show, this is how you make a change for the entire ES-5 universe for every patch. So you don't have to constantly keep doing this for every patch you make. Okay, so now we're going to cover another really cool function of the ES-5, and this is how to assign functions to switches. So maybe you want, switch 5 or switch 4 to bring up a MIDI preset, and again, you can do this a different way for MIDI, but maybe you want switch 4 to switch a relay as well that's not defined in the patch, or maybe you're using this in a sense where you don't want these all to be programmed patches to use in manual mode, for instance. There's a million different things you do. This just shows you that you can use these switches for virtually anything. So you go into Control/EXP menu again. Brings you here. Scroll all the way over to assign one. And what's really cool way that this board's set up is he mainly uses this in manual mode. So we want bank B and the bank button for switching to amp B, and the mute button to switch to amp A, not only to control the relay toggle like I showed you there, but it also wants to send a MIDI message so that the RJM-Y0 can switch the signal going to the front of the head from amp A to amp B. And again, you can watch the video showing the basics of how this board is wired to understand that better, but the main takeaway here is that in manual mode, where you're using each switch 1 through 5 to just turn pedals, those individual pedals on and off, like let's say you're in a jam setting and you're not using program patches. In manual mode, this will still allow you to use this bank switch to control the relay switching to amp B, but also send a MIDI signal, because it needs to be programmed to be able to send a MIDI signal. So this is really the only way to do that in manual mode if you're using this kind of like a looper. Anyways, so assign function 1, you turn it on. So this SW stands for the switch, and it just on or off. So if it's off, the assign function isn't working. The source, so that's what button you want this, what switch this is going to the assign function is going to be set to. So this is to the mute, which controls amp A. The mode is toggle, and we want this to send a MIDI CC command. So the RJM-Y0's set to channel 1. That's the correct CC number to make the switch, and the min and max values. Assign 2, again, switches on. The source is bank, so we want this, obviously the bank button. The assign function is going to this. Toggle, it's a MIDI command for the RJM-Y0 to switch it to amp B. Taking a look at another one. So all these are off, we're not using them, but just to kind of give you an idea, you could source, any of these buttons on the ES-5, you can select. You can switch between momentary and toggle. Now here's the category. So you can go from loop. So, if you want switch 3 to turn loop 1 on or something, I don't know, that you can do that. External control, MIDI commands. You could program a switch to turn an LED toggle on and off. There's a whole array of things you can do, and again, the manual does a really good job at explaining this. Anyways, that's the assign functions of this. I hope this gives you guys a better understanding of how to use the assign function or even the global functions on the Boss ES-5. And again, that global function really comes in handy when you're making a bunch of different presets, because if you're always going to have a button or two the same, or always, the buffer is always going to be on for every preset you make, this saves a ton of steps for having to constantly recreate that on every patch. Using the Boss ES-5 or ES-8 editor on your computer is also a really great tool. This is just showing how to use the ES-5 because maybe you don't have your computer handy, you know, you're on the road or something, or you just don't want to get your computer out and plug it in. We've all been there. Anyways, if you like what you see here, it'd be great if you could shoot us a subscribe or a like, and drop a comment below if you have any questions, or just hit us up because we're always here. Thanks. Till next time.